Let's pause that clock. Tick-tock goes the clock. And the tick and the tock will have to stop for this very important message. Mr. Tran here with another video and your AP tip of the week. By now, you should have noticed that every FRQ has bolded keywords that tell you what to do. Your answer must include the details that the keyword is asking for. No more, no less. Over to the right side, you guys can see these bolded keywords. Let's start with describe. Describe, as defined by College Board, is provide the relevant characteristics of a specified topic. In other words, just describe one idea or one process, and this must communicate all the information about that process. So we have our example here. Describe one realistic strategy to reduce deforestation in a less developed country. You get 1 point for the correct description as listed below. For example, enact enforced laws or regulations that restrict cutting of trees. We're going to take a look at two examples of students' responses. This is the first one, example 1. One realistic strategy to reduce deforestation in CDC, I guess, I don't know what that stands for, is to send or give them some of our resources or to help them in any way so that deforestation is no longer needed in that country or lifestyle. Do you think the student got the point? The answer is no. The answer is too generic and use confusing acronyms like CDC. And if that's what that really means, too generic with help them in any way. You have to tell me in a specific way. What does that help mean? This is what the answer should have looked like. A realistic strategy to reduce deforestation in these less developed countries is to subsidize companies if they don't clear cut, but instead cut down trees in a scattered, more sustainable manner. This way, the companies can still use lumber, but the trees will grow back in a manner that ensures ecological resilience. This described a very, very specific way to reward companies with specific actions needed. The specific way, and again, to subsidize, give money to the companies, and the specific action was to cut down trees in a scattered way. Wow, this is amazing work. We have our second prompt. Nitrate levels exceeding the United States Environmental Protection Agency's primary drinking water standard have been found in the groundwater of areas with intensive agriculture. Describe how the practice you identified in CI leads to elevated nitrate levels in groundwater. You guys get a point if you guys identified and described the correct part. So nitrates infiltrate or percolate, meaning seeping into the groundwater, or the nitrates entering surface waters that recharge aquifers. Example number 1. When it rains, the fertilizer runs off into a body of water or sinks into the soil. With continued use, the nitrates would pile up over time. The student did not get the point because the student did not mention groundwater and it being affected by this excess nitrate over time. He simply put pile up over time. That's not good enough. Example number 2. After irrigation, inorganic nitrate fertilizers enter agricultural runoff into bodies of water that feed groundwater or dissolve in water and infiltrate into groundwater. Here, the student described how nitrate and fertilizers would affect groundwater. The keyword explain is to provide information about how or why a relationship, process, pattern, position, situation, or outcome occurs, and using evidence and or reasoning to support or qualify a claim. Typically, this requires analyzing the relationship, etc., and all those other process and pattern, blah, blah. Explain why typically requires analysis of motivations or reasons for the relationship, etc. Also phrased as give one reason. To summarize this, identify the idea, give how the process works, and give why the process is significant or the outcome. Acid deposition has affected soil quality in many parts of the northeastern United States. Explain one way acid deposition onto soil can affect plant health. You get 1 point for the explanation. Here's a list of answers. So again, let's look at the first one. Increased soil acidity may be outside of the optimal range of tolerance for the plant, resulting in poor plant growth or death. Let's take a look at the first example here. The student said, some plants cannot live when soil pH gets too low. Acid deposition decreases the pH of soil and can eventually kill the plant. Ooh, y'all, no point here. Again, it doesn't describe how the low pH kills the plant. It wasn't explained at all. Student number two's response. Acids leach nutrient ions, potassium, nitrates, and phosphorus from the soil and withhold them from plants. And deficiencies in these macronutrients, which are determinants of plant growth, will cause diminished growth or premature death in plants. We have the how and the why. How does the acid hurt the plants, withholding the nutrients? And we also have the why does that matter? It diminishes growth and causes premature death in plants. This answer here gets the point. Identify means to indicate or provide information about a specified topic without elaboration or explanation. So to summarize that, only give one idea and do not continue and expand on that concept, because if done so incorrectly, will cause you not to get the point. Easiest way to answer the identify prompt is to rephrase the question into a statement. For example, we have right here, identify the most likely pollution threat that the plant will pose to the Fremont River as a result of the plant's normal daily operation. And in this plant, we're talking about the nuclear power plant. I will rephrase the prompt as the most likely pollution threat that the plant will pose to Fremont River as a result of the plant's normal daily operation is thermal pollution. So the answer is indeed thermal pollution. That gets you the point, but in order to make it into a complete sentence, I would just rephrase that statement and give that one idea as the answer. Also, you can list it too, but to make it look nice, answer incomplete sentence. Example number 1. As a result of the daily operation of the plant, radioactive materials such as spent fuel rods and uranium may leak into the groundwater and Fremont River. This could eventually cause abnormalities in the organisms of the river such as fish, vegetation, turtles, etc. This student incorrectly identified the source of pollution. The student said radioactive material, where the correct answer is thermal pollution. No point was awarded here for this very long response. Example number 2, the most likely pollution threat would be thermal pollution, the highly heated water from the daily operation. This is perfection here. The student went a little overboard with trying to expand on that concept of thermal pollution, the highly heated water, but that student got that concept right. If we were to end it, it would be the most likely pollution threat would be thermal pollution from the daily operation. And that's it. Justify is rarely used, but they listed the keyword in the course and exam description, the CED, to signify its rising significance. So here we go. Justify is to provide evidence to support, qualify, or defend a claim, and or provide reasoning to explain how that evidence supports or qualifies the claim. Let's look at an example prompt to make sense of this. 2 countries shown on the graph have developed domestic energy sources, sugarcane in Brazil and tar sands in Western Canada. Which of the 2 energy sources is more sustainable? Justify your answer with an explanation. So here we have 2 points. One for the correct choice, which should be sugarcane, and the other one for the correct explanation. You will lose both points if you didn't correctly identify the energy source. Say you said tar sands. That would be an incorrect energy source, and you would not get those 2 points at all. The student's response: sugarcane is more sustainable than tar sand, so they correctly identified the energy source. Next, it is a plant that can be harvested and essentially renewed every year. However, tar sand, in comparison, takes millions of years to form from the compression of organic materials, which essentially render it too slow to renew to be sustainable. This is a very good answer because it does indeed justify an answer. It gives facts to back up why sugarcane is considered to be sustainable. It is renewed every year, and it also goes further to put down tar sands, saying that it takes a long time to renew, which is not a characteristic of being sustainable. Make a claim is new. I went through all of the old FRQs to make sure that there's no make a claim verb. There wasn't. A big waste of my time checking, but now I know for sure. Anyways, the make a claim means that you have to make an assertion, a conclusion of sorts, that is based on evidence or knowledge and then back it up. Okay, so let's take a look at a practice question released this year that has this key word. As countries change during a demographic transition, there is often a growing demand for meat in human diets. It takes an estimated 1750 liters of water to produce 113 grams of beef. The average person in a more developed country consumes 85 grams of beef per day. Make a claim to propose a solution that would reduce the amount of water required to produce enough food for individuals. So we have the description of the conditions here. Now, think about a solution, and it could be one of these. The response has to have eat lower on the food chain, reduce consumption of animal protein. So we know that it takes a lot of water to produce meat. So to decrease the consumption of animal meat makes sense. So that's the evidence. If I decrease the number of protein that I eat, it will reduce the amount of water required to generate that beef. Propose a solution means to provide a proposed solution to a problem based on evidence or knowledge. An example prompt: biological diversity or biodiversity has become a topic of great concern among conservationists. Biodiversity is often used by scientists and policymakers to help determine the health of ecosystems. For each human activity you discuss in B, propose a practical strategy other than simply banning the activity to reduce the loss of biodiversity. So here's the solutions that we have. Again, an activity that we're going to be looking at is clearing land for construction or homes or roads. And the solution to that would be clustered development, smart growth. And let's see how these students are tackling this problem. Rather than taking expanses of land, bulldozing, and then building, urban areas would do better to cluster buildings. By clustering buildings, it allows a greater space to be saved for wildlife habitat without it being fragmented, thus creating an urban area and preserving wildlife. Instead of clear-cutting logging, selective cutting poses a better choice for biodiversity. This makes it so the habitat remains whole. Also, when cutting, taking trees from a range of ages so as to promote diverse conditions. Okay, the sentence structure of this student's response was iffy, but this right here, y'all got a 10 out of 10 for the entire question, not just the section here. So again, it's a good response. It proposes a solution, right? The clustering of buildings, and then it explained the idea. Why would cluster of buildings help? Because it allows for more space to be saved for wildlife. That part, y'all, super awesome. Although you didn't see discuss as one of those bolded words in the CED, I want to go over discuss anyways because it was used in a larger part of the old FRQs. So Discuss is similar to describe, except that these questions seem to be linked to cause and effect ideas rather than processes. 1 point is generally awarded for the cause and the effect linked. You must have both parts in your answer to earn that 1 point. Identify and discuss one factor in a less developed country that could contribute significantly to a change in life expectancy, similar to what occurred in Haiti from 1995 to 2015. Here are the factors and the linked contributions to the increasing life expectancy. So increased access to healthcare is the example we're going to look at, and it contributes to fewer deaths from treatable diseases, prevention of early death by giving vaccines, also giving medicine or access medicine. All of these things are contributions to increasing life expectancy. And let's see how students wrote about it. First example. The adoption of advanced medical techniques and technologies could increase the life expectancy as well as reduction of harmful pollutants. This is a classic wrong answer on an FRQ. The student identified the advanced medical techniques portion, but failed to discuss how that increases the life expectancy. The second point was not awarded. Even that last part about the harmful pollutants was just irrelevant at all. Did not matter. So let's take a look at a better answer. An increase in healthcare in a less developed country can greatly increase the life expectancy in that area. When people take better care of their health and have more access to medicines, they are able to live longer and fight disease more effectively. Wow, beautiful answer, y'all. Beautiful answer. Student mentions how the increase in healthcare increases life expectancy with specific examples like fight disease more effectively and having more access to medicines. The student got full points. So we are done with keywords, but I want to mention what you would have to do if you saw these concept words bolded right here. So again, we have environmental, ecological, we have economic, as well as social. So let's start at the top. Environmental or ecological means that you have to mention animals and plants as examples. And you also have to mention soil and air if applicable. But the one thing you don't do is you don't talk about how humans affect it, right? Environmental, ecological, think animals, plants, not humans. Economic, you have to talk money or jobs. That's just easy, money or jobs. Social, you have to mention people here, cities, how people are impacted. Right here, we have a list of lab design tips that guarantees you points on exam day. We have the independent, dependent variables, which you have to identify. You have to also identify control and the experimental groups. You also need to form a hypothesis, which is basically a testable statement. You also have to mention types of measurements which would relate to your dependent variable. And then you have to provide reasonable statistical data, things that you think would happen here. You have to definitely mention repeated trials. That's good science, y'all. Good science. Repeated trials. And then finally, you have to draw a conclusion that supports or rejects your hypothesis. And this is all you guys have to do if they ask you guys to design a lab. Last few suggestions for the FRQ in general. So the first thing you have to do or know is that you have to define and or explain any terms you use. Again, assume that the AP reader only knows basic English, okay? That he or she doesn't know anything about AP Environmental Science. Next, answer the question parts in order and label them A, B, C, etc. Do not skip around. Please do not skip around. Okay, next one. You have to write clearly and neatly. The neatly part only applies to those y'all who are gonna be writing for this exam. Not sure why, but if you're comfortable with it, I'm not judging. But again, my highly recommended strategy is to type it out. If you don't remember the name of the concept, describe the concept. And again, this could easily be fixed if you guys have your one document to search for all of the information. Control F will be your friend that day. Remember that no detail is too small to be included as long as it is part of the answer or it's to the point. Avoid using vague terminology. Again, examples are pollution, factory, contamination, runoff, kills stuff, smokestack, bad, toxic, harmful, bad for the environment. See, bad was twice. Negatively influences, energy source, waste, chemicals, pesticides, good or bad. Again, bad is mentioned again. Better or worse. So again, use these words more specifically if you want to use it. Like, for example, with pollution, instead of just saying pollution in general, air pollution. And what would be better than air pollution would be a specific air pollution like nitrogen monoxide, nitrogen dioxide. Next one, lumber factory. Instead of just factory, a type of factory. And instead of just contamination, what type of contamination? Heavy metal contamination could be an example. Okay, those are specific. So here's a list of words for you guys to look at later. It is considered to be the list of words you should avoid using, okay? You shouldn't be using bad for the environment. You have to tell me why it's bad or how it's bad, not just that it is bad for the environment. That won't get you any points on the AP exam, y'all. Okay, so there are 35 of these bad phrases, and you have to specify, okay, in order to make it a good statement or sentence. Hope you guys learned a lot about the FRQs. Again, please make sure that you guys are practicing every single day, or just take it in strides every other day. Make sure you're creating that one document to gather all the information for the AP exam. And then finally, have a good one.